against the Amarillo Starlight, which was 1 inch long and 3/8 of an inch wide. It was about like a small hard shell pecan. It was white diamond. It was a good quality diamond, not as good as Shirley's diamond, which I'll mention in a minute, but it was a good diamond, and it cut to I believe a 7-carat 52-point marquee cut. He did have it cut. Probably the prettiest diamond I saw in all the years I was here was the Kahn Canary. George Stepp from Carthage, Arkansas, found the Kahn Canary. It was 4 carats and 25 points in the raw. The prettiest deep canary yellow diamond, very round, that I had ever seen, and to this day, probably the prettiest diamond I've ever seen. In the rough, prettiest rough diamond. He took a bucket of the gravel home, went through the bucket, found the diamond, and brought it back and weighed it in. He was very interested in selling the diamond, and it didn't take him long to sell that diamond to Stanley Kahn in, I believe it's in Pine Bluff at the time, wasn't it? That's right. Pine Bluff, and Mr. Kahn, he was very generous with the diamond as far as loaning it out. He loaned it to Hillary Clinton at Governor Clinton's and President Clinton's inauguration one time, and she wore it there. So I believe it stayed in the rough for years. I don't know if it still is, but it did have it mounted in a ring in the rough. It was quite a famous diamond. So that was the Kahn Canary. Beautiful, beautiful diamond. I have no idea what it sold for. Carol Blankenship in 1981 found an 8-carat 82-point diamond. Carol was from Shreveport. He found the diamond down in this end of the park. He was a regular. You know, we call the people that dug all the time regulars. That was not a way of getting them in any kind of a bad light. It was just a common name for the people that diamond hunted a lot. There were regulars, regular diamond hunters. So he was a regular. He found it down there, and he weighed it, and we talked, and we had a good time. And I said, I want to see where you found it. So we went down there. Carol had dug a pretty good sized hole, maybe 4 or 5 foot in diameter, about 6 to possibly 8 foot deep. And when he had got down to that depth, he had hit a layer of gravel, and then he had side hilled back into it. He had tunneled about another 8 or 10 foot deep back into it. And it scared me to death as soon as I saw it. And I thought to myself, if any of my supervisors, Richard being my main supervisor, if they knew that hole was there and I didn't do something about it, I was going to be in bad trouble because it had liability written all over it. So I told Carol, I said, Carol, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to fill your hole up. And Carol was mad. Trust me, he wasn't just joking. He was mad. I thought he was fixing to get a hold of me right there. And I explained to him the liability and so on and so forth, which really didn't soothe his feelings very much. But he did allow us to fill it up, so we got the dozer down there and filled it up. Now, he probably dug it out the next time he come, but it had to be filled up that day. It was a death trap, no question about it. So anyway, that was the second largest diamond, at least in my time. There's probably been a couple a little bit larger than that found since then. Miss Betty Lamley in 1978 found an 8-carat 61-point brown diamond. It was a pretty nice diamond. She was down that way too, and I think she had some children or younger people with her. They were digging up some stuff and bringing it to her, and she had some water thereby, and she was washing it out. So she was in partnership with some of her children or grandchildren. It was a nice diamond, nice person. Ray Shaw found a 6.7-carat diamond in 81. And I'll just say that 1981 was one of the best years for diamond finds here. There was 4 diamonds, 5 carats, and 90 points or larger found that year, with the larger being the Star of Shreveport that Carol Blankenship found. Oh, in later years, Shirley Strawn found the Strawn Wagner Diamond, which, as far as I know, now there's maybe diamonds since I've been here, but up to the time I lived, it was the best quality diamond that I know of that was ever found here. It's 3 carats and 3 points, and it cut down to a 1 carat and 9-point round brilliant cut. Now, I'm probably pretty close. If I'm not exactly right, Shirley will correct me in a while because she's here, but that's close. That's close to it. And it graded out to a 000, which meant it was perfect, just a perfect diamond. There was no flaws to it at all. And the state bought that diamond sometime later, and I believe it's on display still in the park. We felt like that diamond needed to stay at the park, and we bought the diamond from Shirley. I say we because I was still employed then. A couple of guys that nobody really ever talked about. I remember them well, though, because I was here a lot of times when they were here, was Lonnie and Donnie Shadden. They lived up around the Waldron area. Now, there was many really good diamond hunters here. James Archer was one of them. He was great. I'm going to talk about him in a minute. He was just a legend and still is. But Lonnie and Donnie Shadden were brothers, both just totally towheads, blonde hair, probably in their late 20s or 30s. Different build. I don't believe they were twins. One was slim and one was husky, but other than that, they looked a lot alike. I believe in a day's time or 2 days' time, those two brothers could find more diamonds by number on this field than any one or two people I'd ever seen out here. I don't recall them ever finding a large diamond, but as far as quantity, those guys could turn them out. It was nothing totally unusual for those guys to find 6, 8, 10, up to 12, 14 diamonds a day between them. They were quite good at it. They were not here too often, but when they come, they always found a lot of diamonds. I just thought I'd mention them. I think they're noteworthy and probably don't get mentioned too much, but they were great diamond hunters. The commercial testing, well, Richard's covered that, and I'm not going to go over it again. It was at the same time tremendously interesting, quite unnerving to the park system, to me, and very difficult. It was a very difficult time for the people that worked here for a lot of different reasons. There was a lot of meetings. There was a lot of hard feelings between quite a few people. It had the community divided. Part was hope that they would mine the park commercially. Part was very strongly against it. And myself, Richard, and some more people that worked here then was caught right in the middle of it. It was not a pleasant time, but it was a very interesting time. Some of the meetings were great. But I know Richard called me when there was an injunction at one point where they said, no more, they got to leave. Richard called me and said, you want to go out there and tell them that the judge said, no more, get out? I said, I'd love to. So I got to go out and tell them to leave. But it went to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in a month or 2 or 3 or 4. I don't remember. That was overturned, and they come back and did finish the testing here. But it sure felt good that day to go out and say, guys, pack your stuff up and get out of here. It was pretty satisfying. Mr. Archer was something. I couldn't tell you how many diamonds he found. I met him a year or two. It was the first time I remember seeing him after I come here, so that would have been 73, 74, somewhere in there. I think he was coming before then, but I was so busy trying to keep my head above water here. I don't really remember him for the first year or so, but then he was here so much and such a nice guy, and I talked to him so often. He became very close to all the park people. We all loved him. He came in with an extremely good attitude every day. He worked hard. He was really a park interpreter that we didn't pay. He probably did more good interpreting what went on here out on the field than any of the paid employees here. He helped people. If you wanted to search for diamonds with Mr. Archer, if you wanted to spend a day or two with him, I know this for fact, you would find a diamond if you spent a day or two with him. You might not have found it yourself naturally, but somehow a diamond, probably small, not a great one, ended up right in front of you so you could just pick it up. I've known that to happen many, many times. That's the kind of guy he was. He wanted everybody to have fun and everybody to be successful. He was a fine fellow. He died here passed here in 1977, I believe, just probably 75 yards out this way. He was coming from off the field one afternoon. This is the best I remember, coming from off the field, and somewhere along there, something happened to him, and he fell and he died. I don't know if it was a heart attack. I don't know if it was a blood clot. I don't know what happened. I don't believe they did an autopsy, but he died right here coming off this field at the end of the day in a place that I truly believe he totally loved. Nice guy, like I said. I talked to him one day, And so many people had said, well, he makes a living doing this, yada, yada, yada. So just he and I were talking one day, and I said, James, you know, the rumor is that you are making quite a bit of money finding and selling diamonds. I said, can you tell me the true story? I said, I don't want to know how much money. Just, you know, kind of give me an idea. Is that on track or not? He said, no, it's really not. He said, I really haven't gained that much from it. But he said, I've got 7 children that all went through college or additional education after they got out of school. And he said, had I not found those diamonds and was able to sell them, he said they couldn't have done that. The money from those diamonds went a long way on their education. And I thought that was quite a remarkable trait for Mr. Archer. And that's the way James was. He'd just about as soon give you a diamond if you really wanted one and sell you one. And he helped his kids a lot. Anyway, he was a great guy. I'm going to tell just a couple of little stories. Marcel Hanslick was a ranger here. Funny stories. Marcel was a ranger here. Many of you know Marcel. He retired here some months or a year or so ago. But Marcel he had a dry humor. He had a way of being really funny without even trying. He was just funny, and he didn't even try to be funny. But we were out on the field one day, kind of walking the perimeter. We were off in this area right down here, and we were trying to figure out exactly if we needed to change the perimeter with the signage or what to do. And we were walking along there talking, and Marcel was looking at somebody else talking. He was about as far as from here to Richard to me, and it had come a big rain, and I had looked over at him, and I looked at something else, and I looked again, and he was gone. He had disappeared. He wasn't there anymore. And I thought, what in the heck? Marcel walked into a hole that was about 5.5 foot deep, full of water. And that hole was big enough to clear his shoulders, and he had went straight down in that hole. And there was a little rim of dirt around the top. You couldn't see his head. He was totally out of sight. And I think his head probably went under. And he come up, and I saw his head, and he climbed out of the hole. And he was standing there, and water was just muddy water dripping off of him. He said, I think I'll just let you guys do this, and I'll go to the house and change clothes. It was, we all laughed. He was grinning. He took it well. There was something happening to Marcel that was funny. I'm going to tell one other little story about James. That was funny to me that day. It was either New Year's Day or perhaps Christmas, and James showed up. We were not open that day. Somebody had to come up and kind of look at things, and I had the duty that day. Everybody else was off somewhere doing Christmas or New Year's or something. But I was up here by myself, and James pulled up. And I said, James, what are you doing here? You knew we were closed today. Well, of course he did. He said, well, I didn't have anything to do. Could you let me out and diamond hunt just a little while? I don't have anything else to do. I said, sure, James, go on. Park your car somewhere out of sight so nobody knows you're here, and go ahead and go out there. But I said, don't make any noise. Don't let anybody see you, because I don't need the door being beat on this afternoon by 100 people wanting to go out there with you. So anyway, he did that, and I was hanging around. Well, an hour or two, I was working at something, and I decided to come outside and look around, see what I could see before I went back to the house. Well, there's a place right here, very close, that I'm looking left and right. Well, one of these places, there was a little place that there could be diamonds found. And some people had found a few diamonds there, but we would have to chase them out pretty regularly because they were way off the edge and didn't need to be digging where they were digging. So we wouldn't let them dig there. Well, James knew where this was. So lo and behold, where do you think James was? He was at that place, and he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. He thought, well, I'm here by myself today. I think I'm going to try that spot. So it was a little thicker than it is now. So I slipped up there, and I got pretty close to him, about as close as, well, from here to the table back there. And I said, James, what are you doing? And he went about 2 foot in the air and jumped. I said, you know you're not supposed to be digging there. He hung his head. He said, I know. I just thought because I was here myself. I said, you got about a bucket of gravel almost. I said, fill your bucket up with gravel. Get out of there. Fill your hole up. Camouflage it so nobody can see it. And I said, don't ever dig there again. Okay. He said, I won't. And he never did. But that was James. He was kind of funny. He was normal. I mean, he wanted to know if there was diamonds there. And I think there was a diamond or two in his bucket. Oh, I'm going to tell you one other little story. It was funny to me. There was a lady here. She was a very small lady. She was about 5'2", maybe. And it was late one afternoon in the summer when we had a long day, and I got stuck behind the front counter, and I had identified rocks till I was just blind. I don't think I could identify another one. And she came up to the counter, and she had a whole handful of rocks. And, she would have struck me about right here. She was really a tiny little gal. And I looked at what she had, and there weren't diamonds. But you know how it is when you're really tired. I was kind of giggly, and I giggled a little bit. And I shouldn't have. I didn't do it on purpose, but I did giggle a little bit. Boy, she looked up at me, and she was drinking one of those old, small, real bottle Cokes, glass bottle Cokes. And she knew that I had laughed at her. And I didn't mean to laugh at her, but I did because I was tired. And she said, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, No, nothing, ma'am. I'm not laughing at you." She said, "Yes, you are. You're laughing. You're laughing at what I've got. You're making fun." I said, "No, ma'am. I'm not. I didn't mean to do that." And she said, "I ought to take this Coke bottle and just hit you in the head with it." And the counter between me and her was about 3 foot wide. And then I did get to laugh, and I said, "Ma'am, you couldn't reach me across this counter with a Coke bottle." And she settled down, and we kind of got okay after that. But I probably spent my time. I could tell you stories about the diamond mine forever. I was here 18 years, and I left the Crater of Diamonds and went to the region office where Shay was at one time, and I spent another 18 and a half years there, and I retired. And coming out here, it's just like coming home. My wife and I lived here for those 18 years. We brought three of our daughters, our only three daughters, home from the hospital, and they grew up here until the youngest was 10 years old, and then we moved to Murfreesboro, and we're still in Murfreesboro. And this became home for us. We love Murfreesboro. We love the mine. I don't come out here a lot because I'm a little too close to it, to be honest with you, but I know it's here, and I appreciate the people that's taking care of it well. I wish we'd have had these facilities when I was here. Our facilities were pretty rough, but they do a great job out here, and I hear nothing but good things from them. And thank you for listening to me. This is just a few things I've shared with you from my time out here. Any questions? I saw one young man who I think might be a grandson raise his hand. Do you have anything? Okay. Thank you all very much.